So thank you for noticing that. So as of now, we have a project detail sheet, the amount of $95,000. We have one price attached to this, which totals about $92,000. I'm sorry, yeah, $92,000. We'll refine this number. We'll obviously have to go out to bid on this. So in looking at different options to how's the best way to deal with this and pay for this. After talking to the recreation director, I reached out to the state community preservation fund overseer to find out if this project would be eligible for community preservation funds. It is, excuse me. So the local community preservation committee here, the chair and I have traded emails back and forth. We have not connected yet. The ask I have of him and of the Recreation Commission when they meet, the Recreation Commission has submitted to the Community Preservation Committee an application to rehabilitate tennis courts in the amount of, I think, $146,000, if I'm not mistaken. What I would like the Recreation Commission to agree to and present to the capital planning, the Community Preservation Committee, excuse me, is to remove that tennis court project from the CPC funding request and replace it with this, at this point, $95,000 well replacement program. The recreation director, and I think I agree, this project, the well project, is more of a priority now than the tennis courts are. The local CPC committee has the ability to accept this application after the date. If they'd like to do that, they're willing to do that. They don't have to, but they have that authority. That's solely their discretion. So I've made the CPC chair aware of what's happening and why and what the request is. Like I said, the recreation director is going to be speaking to the commission at their next meeting, I think early next week, looking for their support to do the same, and then we'll present that to the CPC at their next meeting on 7th of March. So in a perfect world, will we be able to fund this through CPC funds? If we aren't, you know, I think that the infrastructure that's down at the Opportunity Complex, meaning the fields primarily, a lot of money's been invested in those fields over the years. Having them not irrigated could be problematic to the condition of the fields long term. So you know, the capital planning committee is going to have to decide if there's no other funding sources or willingness from this group to fund the $95,000.
Either way, we'd still give an advisory vote of the project.
I understand.
You know, so we would do that, and if they say no, it's on us to determine if we
Yeah.
want to fund. They have 25,000 in their well servicing fund, right? Well, maintenance fund.
Yeah, so that's a good point as well. I think I put in the email to you. So the project's $95,000. There's about $25,000 that they use on an annual basis to maintain the wells at Opachinski. The wells have had they've had manganese and iron and things of that nature. They've tried to maintain the condition of the wells to the best of their ability. They have $25,000 that they won't need this year to maintain the wells. So the net cost to either the CPC or capital planning, net cost is about $70,000. The scope of the work is attached to this project detail sheet, so you can see the information on how they came up with $95,000. By the time you guys meet next, I'm hoping that there's up in direction from the CPC and share that with the board, and we'll add this to the capital plan.
You need this phone number back?
No, but thank you. That's this gentleman from the CPC for the state.
Okay.
the athletic programs that take advantage of those fields.
Mhm.
Any way of them maybe kicking in a little, because you got
Well,
baseball.
it's a revolving
Soccer,
fund that the
lacrosse.
25 is,
So,
so they may have already been the reason it's 25 there.
That's why the 25 cent.
I don't know.
so what happens on an annual basis? There's an estimated cost or an estimated budget for field maintenance. And the Recreation Commission will assign a portion of those costs to the athletic leagues, and they contribute to they write a check to the town, and then ultimately we maintain the fields. I don't know. My impression is, because this has happened in the last week or so, they have not had a conversation with the youth leagues yet. Would the youth leagues be willing and or capable of funding some of this? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a fair question to ask.
I mean, we have to take care of that field.
Yes, sir.
There's no question about that.
So that's where we're at. I wanted to get it to you as soon as I had it. And I know there's some holes in the information. I'll try to clean those up before next time we meet.
Okay, and then when we have an update, let me know if we have
Yeah.
a need for an agenda item on, like an actual presentation, we'll deliberate it fully.
Oh, yeah, you can have, sure. I mean, the issue is the wells are dry and we need replacement. This is.
Wells are dry, grass gets dry, grass dries, it dies.
Listen, that's. the
Roots
bulk.
die, it's all
Right.
topsoil roads.
Right, so that's the step you guys need to take. We can have a formal presentation if you want. I'm not really sure.
Well, I just meant that if it was, if Susan Woodworth or someone from the rec commission or something wanted to come in and say how important it was, or whatever, I'm not gonna, I mean, you've given
Sure.
us the information, but
Sure.
I'm not gonna deny them a chance,
Oh,
nor for the
no, I
committee
understand. No, I
to,
understand. Absolutely not.
debate back and forth. I don't know what debate there'd be on something like this,
Sure.
but,
Sure.
okay. Anything
All right.
else under CIP updates? Anything else changing?
Maybe, and I don't want to take away the excitement Paul's gonna have about talking about this, but we've had some, how can I best say this? We've had some fairly significant costs potentially to one of the vehicles that Paul asked to have replaced in the fiscal 25 CIP that I did not fund. One of them was a 10-wheel dump, one was an 8-wheel dump. The 8-wheel dump is the one that's not being, 8 or 6. 6-wheel dump is not being funded for 200,000+. I propose in my CIP to fund and pay cash for an 8-wheel dump.
For 331,000.
Yes, what? 10-wheel dumps. There's no anything.
Nothing.
All right, thank you. So I apologize. So the 10-wheel dump is $300,000. I think Mr. Basler, and again, I don't want to steal his thunder, but I think Mr. Basler is going to get up and have a conversation about the need of a second vehicle because of the repair costs associated with a 6-wheel dump. One of the things that I would just put in give you some time to think about is we could lease, if the vehicle's in poor enough shape, we could lease the 300, both of those vehicles, the 300 and the $200,000 vehicles. Spread the payments out and be able to buy both those, get both of those at the same time. While there's interest, obviously there's going to be interest involved in leasing those vehicles. I still would respectfully suggest to this committee that the interest we're charged for those leases will be less than the escalation of the price of those vehicles if we defer a year or two. So, and I think one of the things that Paul, you might be able to get rid of most of his presentation. We're waiting now well over a year for vehicles for dump trucks. He got approval for 2 trucks last year. He received 1 and we're waiting for another. It's almost March. It's been about 9 months. If this 6-wheel dump gets delayed another year, we're looking at close to 2.5 years, 3 years potentially before it's actually in the lot. So, I think there's some room for some consideration and this committee's gonna have to make a decision on how they want to proceed with it. But that's becoming a bigger issue than we expected. Sooner than we expected.
You might want to update your committee so that they can be, finance committee, so that they can be upset now, not later when we come in with everything else.
Oh, well, no, all that stuff.
Is the turnaround time on vehicles getting better though?
No, way worse.
Worse.
It's taking.
Last year, the estimate was 2 years from
Yeah.
when they issued the VIN number, for work order. It's getting
Yep.
worse.
It's worse, again, depending on the vehicles, ambulances, some of the heavy equipment is longer than a police car, for example, but it's still ridiculously long.
And is there a magic number on the amount of money we want to have on leases going out?
I'll answer it this way. I'm sorry for the long-winded answer.
Okay.
We have money that's put into a capital, reserve fund, or a reserve fund for capital purchases. It seems to have evolved, that fund has evolved into the funding source for lease payments every year. We have, we have the ability to, absorb probably one more lease at this point. Not sure about two, but, again, I believe, and I'll have to do some analysis, so I apologize, but by the time we actually start making lease payments on these trucks, 1.5 years, 2 years from now, there'll be leases coming off the books that should alleviate that pinch point for the funding.
I think it's around the time the next fire engine comes in. It's the last year of the last payment on, was it engine one or the tower ladder? One of those.
Tower Ladder, I think, has 2 more payments that the town has to make. And then we have 2 payments that are about $205,000 a piece. We have funding from the developer of the apartments at the Kingston collection.
And Amazon.
And no,
I thought they both contributed.
I don't believe so. Not for the ladder truck. So there's funding there that will fund the lease. We have money available, so we'll have a source to fund that rather than this reserve fund.
And part of that is the meal tax.
Yes, sir. The meal tax and $100,000 a year that goes in from free cash.
So we need to encourage people to eat.
Eat out in
people-
Boston.
And locally.
Yes,
I think one of the issues with leases is that once more and more your budget is taking care of these things that came up in an emergency fashion, you have less flexibility in your budget for things that are coming up now. But a lot of some stuff we're gonna see go away, I think, that are small purchases, like they have loaders and things like that. What will be left will be the things that we would have used the capital stabilization fund for if we had a fully funded fund. Valerie, how up against the clock are you?
About a half hour.
that's up to me.
Is there any other questions about it?
I'm here,
We'll touch
so-
upon it again when.
Any more questions? Let me know.
All right, planning.
Thank you. So you'll notice there's nothing in the capital budget for planning. We were hoping to do Lake Street as the sidewalk, which is part of the Complete Streets plan, as for like the next project in the Complete Streets program this year, but they changed the funding for that program so that you're limited down every 4 years, you can come back. So because we got a $400,000 grant and we successfully finished the Torres Corner intersection, we're down to about $100,000 that we can spend if we can get it competitively in a grant. So we're looking at our alternatives now that we know that the Lake Street culvert has been designed, and both the Jones River Watershed Association and the Conservation Commission are out for looking for grant money to pay for reconstruction of the dam and reconstruction of the culvert. We're hoping that we would follow along top of that, once those are done, with a shared use path. And we're trying to team that up with the roundabout that people are talking about at Silver Lake High School. $100,000 isn't near enough to do the engineering, design, or construction of any of those things. That would come from Complete Streets, but we're also thinking about applying to, at least submitting an expression of interest to the Community One-Stop Program to see if they might have some funding for it. So I'll keep you posted, but that's why we had to drop things out of the capital plan, because they changed the funding program. At the same time, we're trying to pass more bond bills, more money. The Mass Municipal Association is once again trying to push the Commonwealth to put more money into Chapter 90 for Paul's roads, but it's been level funded for a decade now, and they came back with the same level funding. And the cost to do the roads just keeps going up exponentially. So we're looking everywhere we can, and I've been going to some of the federal grant. There's a new office that the governor created that's to help local communities apply for federal funds. So I'm trying to shake every basket I can find to see if we can find some additional funds to help out.
Now, and a question, maybe I missed it, but last year the town approved 50,000 for the sort of startup engineering, so that we
Yeah.
could then apply for the grant. Is that still in place, or has that been used, or
We
not
are
applicable
using,
anymore?
we're using it towards Lake Street. And the 50,000 a year is conservative. So we've asked them for, we've decided on a consultant. We weren't sure if we wanted to use the person who designed the culvert. But because Environmental Partners got involved in the roundabout, we've gone with Environmental Partners who do a lot of the engineering design for the town. So we've solicited a proposal from them, or asked for it. We haven't gotten it yet. The other thing we're doing with Environmental Partners that Paul and I are working in tandem with them is, I don't know, 2 years ago, right after I started this, the selectmen had done a townwide survey of all the road issues, traffic safety concerns, and did a survey. We figured out that of all of those concerns, quite a few of them are on state roads. And some of them had to do with police enforcement. But we ended up with about 25% of them could be addressed with town money on local roads. And we got with Environmental Partners, and they're under a contract from the planning board's public benefit money. And a little bit of that is going towards prioritizing, not only from that survey, but also from all the work that Old Colony Planning Council does, and all the work that Paul does, and all the work that planning and conservation do to try to figure out what we need in the community. And we're going to pick the top 10 local roads, the top 10 state roads, and get some estimates of what those costs will be, again, for grant funding. And that's a good thing. I mean, it's going to, everything we spend out of that public benefit account, we're trying to amplify with grant money. So we'll have something coming before the selectmen next month, we think. And the top 10 for state roads, we're going to take that and give it to the state and say, okay, let's go. Here's, we prioritized it. Here's our action plan. We want you to help us with that. And the whole idea behind this is to have a package that we can bring to grant funders to say, here's what Kingston needs. Here's how we figured it out. Here's all the plans and thoughts that went into it. And here's the plan, here's the cost, here's the project, so that we're ready to go. We want to be, give things to our local reps, give things to anybody that's listening, give it to MassDOT and say, we want funding. So we're hoping that will be productive, and it will definitely give us the ammunition we need, in addition to the $50,000 a year, to get the grant funding that we need to keep going with these projects and keep them moving forward.
And we saw a presentation at first meeting of the year with Matt Pennell about the culvert.
Yeah.
And so the state was really interested in that. I mean, I know we probably wouldn't want to do all that work and then have to figure out how to fit a culvert around it, but
We were going to go after the culvert. And the idea would be that if the dam is reconstructed, which would happen at the same time as a culvert, they're right next to each other over Silver Lake. Part of that project is going to restore the ecosystem behind the dam. Our hope is to make a pocket park there for fishing. And it would connect, the shared use path would connect the school with a conservation trailhead. And then that conservation trailhead goes to Grove Street. So we think that there's a lot of opportunity here. And what we're doing is we're using the designs for the culvert and the dam, giving those to the engineer to say, okay, here's what we want you to plan to do after that. And here's what's gonna get built.
Mhm. Does anybody have any questions? Chris, you have any questions? Hearing none. Any other updates?
Can't think of any.
Okay, well, it's good to learn about our town infrastructure.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming out for the update.
Thanks for having me in this order. I appreciate it. And thanks for your time.
Very well. Thank you. All right, Mr. Dazzler.
Good evening, everybody. Excuse me.
Good evening.
All right, I gotta clear up a couple things that Mr. Hickey brought up first and foremost. We did take delivery. Last year, I only got funding for one truck, but we won't get that till probably next year. The two trucks that I ordered back in July of 2022, I got the six-wheel dump truck last week, or 2 weeks ago. And the tractor replacement, I might see that in 4 to 6 weeks. So I want to get that out to open. So it is a long term.
Amazon did kick in on the tower. Whatever.
Amazon did kick in. They did. They
That was
kicked
part of the justification for a 100-foot tower. I
in.
think.
Amazon kicked in two, Trump Pro kicked in two, and then we did the rest. But, you know, he's got a lot of numbers in his head right now. That's a lot.
A lot of irons in the fire.
So as he stated when he first sat down, our fleet consists of about 10 to 11 trucks. I have about 7 6-wheelers, 2 twin tons, a couple pickup trucks. We went out plowing twice this year. One was on the 19th of February. That's when this truck number H13, which is a 2002 Sterling. Transmission died, so we had to tow it back to the barn. We had a technician come out. He inspected the harness, found patchwork connected to the transmissions. Got completely heavy rotted around the plug connectors. He's recommending a new harness, if they can find a new harness. And the computer that runs the transmission and might have a possible short in also. So what we've decided to do is park that truck. So the 6-wheel dump truck that we got delivered 2 weeks ago was going to replace H11. H11 is holding on longer than H13, so H13 will be decommissioned probably when the winter's over. As Mr. Hickey brought up, he's in his budget, or proposal stuff, he recommended funding the $330,000 10-wheel dump truck. Now, some of you might remember winter of 2015, when we had 109 inches of snow, and we decided back then that 6-wheel dump trucks weren't large enough. So at that time, we decided, okay, we're going to invest in a couple of 10-wheelers. 10 wheels are $31,000 each. So, knowing that the H13 just died, I am still looking at a 2000 and a 2001 6-wheelers, talking with Mr. Hickey. Instead of paying cash for the 331 10-wheeler, to start leasing. Now, I know Mr. Hickey says, you know, the 10-wheeler and a 6-wheeler. I'm thinking it's time to buy a 10-wheeler and 3 6-wheelers. Because 13 is a 2002 and that just died. H11 is a 2000 and H12 is a 2001. So if a 2002 truck just died this year, and we can't replace any trucks to get them in another 2 years, H11 and H12 will not last. So we can postpone the inevitable. And just when they die, they die. That kills the ability of us to maintain the roads in the wintertime, because all our 6-wheelers have dedicated sanding routes. There are no six-wheel dump trucks vendors out there to be had.
You said 1 10-wheeler and how many 6-wheelers?
Three.
Great.
But we have been postponing this for a lot of years. And I'm sorry that these trucks are in this condition. But after 20-something years of fighting winters in this town, it's time to replace them. And if those two other big trucks go down next winter, I cannot maintain the roads, which means buses can't get to the houses to deliver the kids from school. Police and fire can't get to the houses during snowstorm icing events. And I just said, I cannot hire any more vendors. There are none out there. So I hate to bring this to your attention, but this needs to be addressed.
You've been out sanding on numerous occasions though this winter, right?
Yes.
So it's not just the 2 snowstorms that they think they've been taking it.
A sanding event, if we were down one truck, the other trucks can make up. We wouldn't get all the sanding done within 3.5 hours, but it'd be a little longer. We'd get through that. Having those 2 trucks down when it's snow on the ground, because like I said, we can't hire any more big trucks because there's none out there.
And I see these trucks are Daimler, so the Daimler Chrysler, is that,
No, these trucks are, the first trucks are these, the older trucks of,
no, well, we're planning on buying with you.
Freightliners.
And they guarantee the parts for like 20 years or part accessibility, or they don't make any guarantees?
There's no guarantees on that. But what I have been doing is all the trucks we order now are coming with a 5-year warranty, which at least extends the issue of repairing on, at least onto that.
In the distant past, when the trucks had parts issues and the manufacturer never stopped supplying them, there's no third party, like, companies, I have to forget all the names of them, like Delphi or whatever, or some semi attached to some of these manufacturers. Was there a sort of a tertiary aftermarket? So I remember learning that a long time ago, a lot of, at least for consumer cars, when those tiers of parts suppliers were no longer making the parts, Russian factories would start making them, shipping them in.
I haven't
I
heard
don't
of
know.
that.
Well, I mean, now there's so many sanctions and everything, I wouldn't be surprised if that is probably part of the supply issue. So I remember in years past, you said, well, we just can't get the parts from anywhere.
Right, that was the issue, was that you can't get the parts because the trucks are so old. So what the last time we sent the truck to our vendor to fix, they went to a used junkyard and found a part. We also had another truck down this year, the plow lights went down, so that had to be sent out, and that was a $1,700 bill because they had to chase wires that were 25 years old. That was a $1,700 repair. It's, 3 years ago, I threw the right flag up. I don't know what we're doing here.
Are you proposing to acquire these 4 trucks all this year, in this upcoming fiscal year?
Yes. Now, if we buy them, if we order them this year, we will not see them until 25 or 26 at the earliest. So if we don't do it this year and we wait till next year, I can't guarantee next winter's roads, and I won't. And then if we decide next year to buy them, then we might get them, see them in 26, 27, or 28. Now, I was in front of the FinCom 2 weeks ago, and I finally had the chairman agree with me that schools, police, fire, and roads are the 4 major things towns have to offer their residents.
But you weren't asking for this many trucks. He
I
might have
wasn't.
thrown his chair at you if you had.
I understand this, but you also understand that if I can't keep these roads clear, I'm gonna get the phone calls. I'm gonna have to worry about the accidents. I'm gonna hear from parents that their kids can't get to school because the buses can't go. And because we are a regional school system, if our roads can't get the buses there, Halifax and Plimpton doesn't matter.
Okay, so just from a leasing perspective, fiscal year 26 is the last payment on the 410L loader backhoe. That's only $19,000, doesn't go a long way. We in 2029, we pay off a 1-ton dump truck. That payment annually is just over $33,000. This year's the last payment on, says the ladder truck, that's $202,000. Fiscal year 27 is engine 1, $155,000. We know we have another engine coming in during that year, I believe. And then we have a brush truck carrying on. And an ambulance still.
I mean, the issue is so dire that when I was speaking with Mr. Hickey about the budgets, last year we had an additional 500,000 for road improvements. I'm spending that money this year. It's not even in next year's budget. I would forego the 500,000 for the road improvements. Hold on, we need those. These trucks are past their lifespan. They are not safe for our employees to be driving.
And the six-wheeler trucks are 180 grand with the Sanders, correct?
Six-wheeler dump trucks are $200,000 now. We just got one delivered 2 weeks ago. It was $222,000, and the lease payment on that was 54,000, I do believe.
You know, I think that shows you.
For those two leases we just got, so. And we'll start paying that when we get to the tractor replacement. Now, when this H13 hits the auction, I don't know what we're gonna get back from that. It could be 20 grand, 30 grand, it could be 5. So we'll see some residuals coming back from the sale of that truck. But this is,
If the chair will allow, maybe Paul and I can work on funding options for the 4 vehicles and bring back to you at your next meeting and try to figure out how, if it's palatable, and how it would be proposed to be funded.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see some analysis of what it does in terms of leasing. What we'd be expecting that to add to our, you have to look at that versus the other leases you're carrying at the same time. What share of our capital plan does that have? And then it needs to be looked at with what are we planning to do during those years? There's a Vector truck, there's a fire engine, there's always another ambulance every so many years. And schools department's coming up with a wish list, and with the new police chief coming on, I'm sure there's something he's using and wherever he is that Kingston doesn't have, he's gonna want to add, so it's gonna be.
and we haven't talked about transfer station equipment either. Well, replacement of the salt shed roof. These are all things that within the next 5 to 10 years are gonna be popping back up on us.
Yeah, so that's where I get concerned about doing it. Is that we just, we're saying, hey, let's do this now, but then it's like, okay, well, now we've got a pile of these things and a pile of requests coming in, that we're not gonna put it under a lease. Yeah, I think we'll have to, this one's gonna. Which of the trucks, the 10-wheeler is which one? Is that H11? Or is that H?
H11 and H12 are the two I propose, and H13 is the one that has the bad transmission.
Is that a 6-wheeler?
Yes,
Or the other 6-wheelers?
yes, I have H13, H14, and H15 also. And I still have another 1-ton. That's a 2012 that we haven't even talked about yet either. And the one we've ordered is ordered, but that's a 2012 we're replacing.
So, then the question, you've got H11 and H12, which were requested for fiscal 25. And then we've got H13, which was requested for 26, and H7, which was requested for 27. H7
It's fiscal year.
is fiscal 27. That's $180,000 truck. That's a 6-wheeler.
That's a 1-ton.
Okay, this says fiscal year 2026.
But
That
those are the
says
4
fiscal year
vehicles,
28.
those are the 4 vehicles you want to replace.
The 4 wheels I want to place are 11, 12,
13.
13 is going to replace with,
You said 13, 14, 15, so
Right.
7's not even on the list.
wait, 7's a 1-ton. But that, if it's not on the list, then it's my bad, I dropped it off the list.
So we're just trying to,
We can,
provide some additional information on capital planning. I will get it out before then, so you have time to digest.
Where are the priorities here? I mean, if not even just us, but town meeting could just say it's too many. which ones would you fight the hardest for?
Me?
Knowing the operation, and what,
Knowing,
you need them all, that's why.
I need them all.
But which one, if you didn't get them all, which ones are you gonna fight for?
Right now, the two big dump trucks,
The 10 wheelers,
six, well, at
11 and 12?
11 and 12 are six wheelers now.
Oh, both of them, you're proposing to bump them up to 10 wheelers.
Not, well, I would like to get at least one more 10-wheeler out of it.
And that's what, when you got the one you have that's now painted that gray elite color.
Prime.
Battleship gray. That's a 10-wheeler, that's a 6-wheeler.
No, the one you got before that. It's usually at the transfer station.
That's the roll-off truck.
It's a roll-off truck, but you were gonna use it for plow operation
We
as
do.
well. And that year, I believe you asked for 2 10-wheelers. And we wound up selling on a 10 and a 6.
Well, 2 10-wheelers for the highway department, the 10-wheeler roll-off was to take some of the weight off the old 13 Mac because of all the mechanical issues we had with that. So what we did now is instead of making the 13 Mac go until another 5 or 7 years, we decided to replace that this year with the tractor. So I'm losing a spot because we had to move up the Mac replacement instead of getting another dump.
Like when I was preparing for this meeting, just reading about one truck. I've got more information to digest here. Anybody else have any questions or concerns?
Look forward to the next stage in this conversation.
Like I said, we haven't even addressed the asphalt.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. We're a microcosm of the country, and infrastructure is a big issue everywhere. It's an issue here.
And how much of this are we trying to get now because of the ordering lead times?
The trucks, I like to try and get them as soon as possible.
But the reason we're asking for, if I understand your question correctly, the reason you're asking for 4 this year, I understand the condition of them now,
Right.
but there's also
The lead time.
The lead time of 18 months to 2 years. So does it make sense, right? I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah,
Right,
we wouldn't actually be hit with all those payments.
If it was if the lead time was 6 or 8 months, you might only be asking for 2.
Right. I mean, before COVID, we'd order the trucks the first week in July after all the town meeting warrants. And we usually receive the vehicle sometime in April or May the following year. So I wish we could go back to that, and I don't see that going back because from what I'm getting from our truck dealers is that Freightliner and Mack are only making so many vehicles themselves. The fire chief stories, he's telling me there's 4,000 trucks backs up just for fire trucks. You know, COVID threw a loop for everybody, and the need's still there. So there's a queue line now that used to be 6 to 9 months. It used to be a year, it used to be 18 months. Now it's 24 months. So we got the 6-wheel we ordered July 22, and I haven't seen the tractor yet.
So one of the things we're gonna look at, I think, so what departments typically need is a VIN number, which they can get through,
You need a town meeting approval and then a
county
lease.
approval, right? So we don't have to pay for anything to get that VIN number. So we could look at potentially staggering leases. You know, entering the 2 leases starting in fiscal 25. And then the other 2 trucks that were approved, we wouldn't begin the financing of those in fiscal 26. So there's a couple of ways we could try to blend in that money. We just need to look at it.
And you're saying that the debt service on the leases would be more than made up for by ordering them sooner rather than possibly.
So I can go back and try to find some specific examples, but again, I don't want the word to fall out, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But in the conversation, I know the fire chief has had, I believe Paul has had, with the vendors that we have when we purchase the vehicles. The increase in costs from one year to the next is more than the amount of interest we would pay annually to lease those vehicles.
We've been advised to add 20% at least to the total cost of the truck when we get their estimate. based on the turnaround time.
Mhm.
Sometimes, in some cases, 20% might not be enough. So if you're looking at a $200,000 truck, there's additional 40 grand. Now, I don't know what a long-term or a 5-year lease would target interest.
I mean, we've seen stuff that's in the plan up ahead just go up. Some things that you estimate higher and then the sales rep gets back and, you know, with the telephone system, it's cheaper than we thought it was gonna be. And some of these are, you know, I think what the vacuum truck went on the plan at $500,000, what's it, 600,000 plus 700,000?
Oh, yeah.
Already after a couple of years.
If you were to order multiple trucks, you get a little bit of discounted rate? Probably not.
I could ask them, but I don't know.
Just depends on what, when they look at that long list of orders, do they have to discount?
And the question I have now, I'm thinking
They're
about
not
is,
looking for business, they have, they.
Right.
if we
No one
ordered,
can supply
if we ordered the 4 freight liners, is my freight line, they're not gonna be able to supply 4 freight liners, because he only gets so much of allotment. Is he only gonna give them to Kingston, or is he gonna give them
Basic law of economics, high demand, low supply, high price.
to?
If this was actually accomplished, we actually got this through gear, cap plan, FinCom, BOS, onto town meeting. How many of these trucks, or I should say, what's the impact of having placed these orders in terms of how many trucks we're gonna need in the next coming 3 or 4 years? Because if we're just ordering for the stuff we know is already coming, and then we're not making a new capital appropriation for all those. But then it's like, okay, well, that money will still be in the budget, we can't just take it and pay off the lease. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around that, it's a whole other level of something would have to be analyzed, are we just gonna wind up? Instead of just doing the needs-based capital, is all that money gonna go to little, you know, people's wants, their projects? Meanwhile, you can't take that and put that towards the lease, you know, debt services don't like that. We've discussed before, so.
And do we just? I mean, just go out and either pay cash for, find money to pay cash for 2 of them, 3 of them. Which is a huge Herculean task.
We just go through it and, you know, go through all these options, Paul. Do we need a engine oil temperature gauge? Do we need a standard oil pan? Can we just get a less than standard oil pan? Does it have to be elite gray? I'm sure that costs a little extra money.
No, it's
Rather just
it's
gray.
not, Mr. Hickey, because they're not painting it a color, we save money.
Yeah, we're priming.
Believe me, these are not the Cadillacs and trucks, they're not.
I know.
Is it, I apologize if I have this somewhere already, I should know about. Is it possible to get just like a master list of the vehicles that you have and,
Lead inventory.
yeah,
Yep.
and more to the point when they're from and kind of the lifespan that goes with them, because that would be really helpful.
You'll see a lot of these it seemed like you got a lot of trucks, at least a lot of them were made around the early 2000s. And there's a lot in the 2010, 2012 period, if I'm not mistaken. I may be confusing with other departments, but those are the timeframes where I see a lot of the replacements. I don't often see a lot of 2007s or anything like that. I don't know if you have them, they just haven't come up yet,
The
but
2000, the 10, the truck 11, 12, the 99 and 2000 were replacing 82, 83, 84 Brigadiers. So the lifespan on a highway truck is usually around 15 years, 17, and then you start with the rod. That's usually when the best time to get rid of them. So these trucks are 7 or 8 years beyond that already. Now, I wish they made trucks with a lot of stainless steel and so we didn't have rotting issues, but they don't. And if they do, we don't want to pay.
like the exhaust systems.
I mean, the issue with most of our bigger trucks is not the motor, it's the chassis, the electrical system, the whole hydraulic system because of the age.
All the hoses and everything underneath, they're just falling apart. At least from the ones I've seen. Speaking of which, does anyone feel like, I mean, maybe we're not at that point yet, but you know, we have a couple weeks till we vote these. Does anyone feel like they need to see these trucks in order to understand the issues? Some of them are under the hood and we're just not gonna find out, but I don't know. You weren't on our field trip last year, and I've been on 2 of those where we've gone and actually looked at the condition of these things.
I wouldn't mind doing it at some point. It's gonna be really tricky for me to do that in the next 2 weeks. So I'm happy to do that as a kind of longer run thing. I'm not sure that's.
Well, if we, you know, as long as it's not a majority of people going, we can do it anytime.
Yeah,
You don't need to post a meeting, just stop by and bring you over.
Only up Saturday, Sundays, I have no life, so I can come.
I meant to ask about that in the inventory list, because we saw the one that the police department had. And I knew there'd been one, I'm pretty sure there's one for the highway department. I would like to see that, so we're looking at that on a longer term.
And I'll include the compact is the transfer station, the roof for the salt.
Oh, yeah, all that stuff and like make,
Yep.
model year,
Mhm.
what we use it for. Is it primarily, road repair and snow, or is it roll off and snow, or is it this or that? I mean, even like the trackless machine, the pickup trucks, when,
Yeah.
we put this,
Okay,
I think it's good for everyone on the community to have more familiarity with not just the department and their operations, but down to knowing the trucks and I mean, some people have done this in years past, could tell you exactly which one H11 was without having in front of them. Maybe some guy who spent 11 years in this committee.
and I talked to the wife, if and when I retire, there might be a possibility to try to come back to this. I always like this committee, and I want to try to buddy you guys up, but it's an interesting committee, but you have hard choices to make, because I know between fire, police, schools, me, and everything else, it's tough decisions that have to be made.
Yep.
If you have any other questions, then please feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go over all of these before I conclude my questioning, so.
Was there a period of time when, like, we replaced, seems like we replaced 2 cruisers every year? For fire? Was there a period of time where we're replacing trucks with DPW? On a regular basis?
So,
There was, and then there was a period where there wasn't.
so one of the things, if I could just jump in I'm a short timer, I guess. But before I started here, just before I started, I was hired, but I hadn't started. I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Badler, the treasurer at the time. And there was talk about needing to accelerate the replacement program, because for a number of years, the CIP goal or total budget was $500,000. And that, at least towards the end, in 17, 18, 19, for example, that just wasn't enough money to be able to replace on a consistent basis vehicles across the different departments. And one of the departments that suffered, I think, because it's not an emergency response department, is street and park. So there was a an understanding, I think, of the people in the room at that time, that we needed to accelerate the replacement of these vehicles. So, one of the things I'm trying to do, like we kind of do with the police, and it's not quite as easy with public works or streets and parks, it is because of the cost of them. We'd like to have a consistent amount of money we spend every year on whether it's buying or leasing vehicles. And so one of my concerns about getting forward in time is, if 20 years from now, it falls on the capital plan committee still. Where there's a risk of having to replace these 4 vehicles at the same time again. So we're trying to, and I think we've done a decent job over the last 2 or 3 years, of 1 or 2 a year. But we'll figure out, we'll get some options together, bring them back to the capital planning committee, and you guys can vet which ones you like, which ones you don't like, and we'll try to go from there.
Yeah, so it was $500,000 wasn't enough. I think you also had antagonism between certain former members of the committee against certain departments.
I don't even.
This one, that one, but yeah, I'm just saying it's better that we're. Listen, go on.
Nope.
But when I was on this committee, it was the number we always used was 1% of the budget. So I was on this committee back in the early 2000s, back in that time. So the town budget was 32 million, so it was 320,000. But as we move forward, the price of these equipment pieces went higher, and this, thank goodness the town budget didn't go that high, but there's been a change.
All right, any other questions about the trucks? I think we're probably gonna be revisiting questions down. Anything else? Chris? He's on good.
I'm good.
Okay,
That's about how long it takes me to switch from the Note app to the Zoom app.
I'll set a timer next time. What else you have for us, Paul? We have road engineering and some, is there anything else?
Well, the road engineering, I think Valley tried to cover most of that. It is nice finally working with the planning department about trying to get grants and stuff to improve our infrastructure we have. The engineering money that we got this year, we've used already on some projects. But like Valerie said, with the environmental partners people, engineering group. There's plenty of things to be engineered in the town. And hopefully, once we get a direction from the top 10 list that we're trying to get developed, having some engineering money to start seeding engineering to get to a cost analysis, what is possible to be done.
Because a lot of the state projects, a lot of the state money is available, they want to have shovel-ready projects. They don't want to have to wait for the towns to approve funding for engineering, having engineering done, that whole process. So if we can show them where we have a set of plans that we go out to bid with, as soon as we get an award, they're more apt to fund those projects.
And they can say that the engineering proves that it costs run about X amount of dollars. Is that
And,
probably another-
and the town has been willing to fund a portion of the overall project with engineering. So, skin in the game.
Right, I mean, I use chapter 90 money for engineering, paving, drainage issues. So, well, like I said, having Valerie is a valuable asset because she has another network of contacts to get these grants and stuff. The complete streets was all her when she first got it. That was awesome to get this intersection up here done. And between her and her assistant there, they're trying to capture more. This walking trail on Lake Street, trying to incorporate doing that project when they do the culvert over there. So we don't have to go back and reinvent it or re-engineer stuff.
So do the engineers survey the town and determine what the priorities are? Or do you give them a list of priorities and they tell you what it takes to make it happen?
Valerie and I have kind of guided them to what we think our priorities are. And because we get calls, we get input from residents. And then, like she stated, when the board reached out to the residents, there was over 300 different inputs on different items. There are multiple same issues, but those concerns those residents brought forward and that are the things we're trying to bring to the forefront. Sidewalk installations, making intersections safer, more crosswalks, make pedestrian easement around, shared streets, bicycle lanes, stuff like that. So it takes engineering to do that, like Keith said. So, and 50,000 is a lot of money, but in engineering terms or in construction terms, it's.
So for us, it's not like when you say engineering, 50 grand, it's not like we're gonna get we know we're gonna get 50 grand. So give us an idea maybe of in what direction might you direct the engineers?
Maybe look at the. I'd like to see the Main Street area of town start thinking about getting rehab, like we did in Route 27. So have engineers do a preliminary estimate on water calculations, especially now with the higher rainfalls we're getting. How much more drainage do we need to put in the road? What's the possibilities of getting more grants to pay for some of this stuff? Or that's our kind of historic section of town. Can we get historic money out there? I've had issues with water draining on areas where I call the engineer up, I say, I need a quick design how to get out of this mess. Okay.
Any other questions about engineering? I do have a question, now that I think about it. Pottle Street, which I believe you said is a series of easements,
Bottle Street is an easement.
and it comes to Summer.
Yeah.
And right next to that, you have Evergreen. Of course, the light's on Evergreen. But when there's a lot of people exiting Pottle Street, whether it's the hilltop or the Opportunity Fields or both at the same time, it just backs up and it's almost, is that one of those things that might as well be a lost cause to fix that intersection? Or has there been talk in the past, like a civil engineer thinks they could fix it, but it would cost too much, or?
The problem with the lights at Evergreen Street is tied in with the railroad tracks.
Mhm.
And those, I do believe the Evergreen lights are on the loops that are in the ground. Bottle Street doesn't have any loops, so that doesn't, when the traffic backs up, there's nothing to trigger that light to say, keep it red or green, whatever color it wants to be for so long. We could look into that. But those lights are controlled by the state. Railroad lights are controlled by MBTA, so I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, you know, when you're there and it's not something that's a problem most of the time, but trying to take a right or a left when Summer Street's backed up, especially when the train's going through. And you've got a light for Evergreen and then whoever's on Pod, there's no, like I said, it might be a lost cause.
But that's something I can look into.
I wouldn't say, I'm not asking you to go out and ask these people to spend
No, but-
money on it, but I just don't know if that's even solvable. I was just curious if.
Well, as we know, Paul Street's usually nights and weekends, right? So hours going back on a Monday through Friday, daytime, probably not much. Whether the lights can be tweaked for weekends, it's worth an answer, a question. I can answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like, I remember spent last year, spent multiple times, at least 20 minutes. Making our way through, maybe more, and you know, if it happens at rush hour.
Well, there used to be a sign in front of the liquor store that said, do not block intersection.
Mhm.
And most people would be courteous enough not to block it, so anybody coming out taking the left, at least get out.
Yeah.
As we know, most people aren't courteous.
No, it's not really an easy way out back anywhere.
That was looked into years ago, and there's costs associated with that.
I'd like to throw something on the table here too.
Yeah.
Any event that happens at the Hilltop does not release all at once.
No, no.
You have 4 baseball and softball games going on at the fields, and they all get over just about the same time. So your traffic problems have been on Pottle Street for decades. And I'm sure Paul will agree with me that the only times that there's been a traffic backup, except for one time, have been because there was no communication from the sports groups and the Recreation Commission that a lot of things released at the same time that shouldn't have been there. So I take offense to bringing up the private business that's down there as part of the problem, because it's definitely not part of the problem.
I'm not trying to create any offense here by bringing it up. It's just that there's a lot of cars down there. I'm not saying they're letting out at the same time, but some of them are exiting and they're getting into the waves with everyone leaving the sports complex, which has multiple times where they exit. And it's just a lot of traffic down there. And the point of my question is to help the people who are on Paul Street, regardless of what time they're trying to exit, because regardless of where they're coming from, they could get stuck at that light. It's an intersection I don't think anyone would have designed if they could have created it out of nothing. If something is there because someone had a road here and someone had a path there, and then they threw in a train line and they canceled the train and they brought it back, and you've got a potential mess
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's anything to do with the sports or the Hilltop. I know members of the Hilltop. I've been going down the sports stuff lately with my kids. I used to work in one of those little businesses over there. It's just even at the perfect amount of time, the perfect times you don't have all the traffic, it's hard to take a right. It can be even harder to take a left. That's just the point. I'm just saying that's when it's exacerbated. Is when activity, everyone's having a good time, and it's even harder to get out. So no offense intended, Ken. Okay, anything else about roads?
That's something to be addressed down the road.
No pun intended, right?
Thank you for your time. I'm sorry I dropped this on everybody tonight, but it needs to be addressed.
Your favorite time of the year is coming up, pothole season.
No, it's winter.
We're in okay shape for potholes. And some of the ones that are out there, we still have some more milling and grinding to do from some of the money we got last year for that, and that's gonna be done before June. So our roads are in a little better shape than some of the other ones are. I know that. But my favorite time here is summer.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder earlier, but you did have an announcement for FinCom.
This probably will be one more time I'll be in front of this committee next year. As your highway superintendent. As with everything, we get old. Some of us getting older than others. So, yep,
You're old enough to retire?
I started when I was very young. Yeah. I used to have full head of hair like,
Mitch just said he's stepping down, he's 82 or something like that.
Maybe I'll stay, I don't know.
Sure enough, I'll be able to run for president.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you,
and
and thank you for your service, but we will be seeing you again.
You will.
Maybe a few more times after that, if we have anything to do about
Right,
it.
and I'll try to get that inventory to you guys no later than Wednesday next.
Sounds good,
Thank you.
Ray. Thanks so much, Paul.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Proctor, but it's Water's turn.
Thank God.
I don't have a lot to going on, so. Good evening, gentlemen.
So from you, we have a well cleaning pump replacement, tank painting, that should be interesting, and the Elm Street building repairs.
Yes,
Where would you like to start?
whichever you prefer.
All right, let's get these pumps.
Sure, so that's routine maintenance that's performed, the cleaning, maintenance of the wells, inspection of the pumps of the submersible pump that's in the wellhead. We try and spread them out, so we maintain them ahead of time before we have a failure and lose a well. We can take them offline at a low pumpage time, we will do routine maintenance on it and upgrades as time goes. We do have another well that's coming up that needs to be cleaned. It's identified by the pump rate that's coming on it. The pumpage is, I don't know how to say it, the volume coming out of it is reduced because the screen needs to be cleaned. So we just had one well clean this past fall that was done. We did an upgrade on that to facilitate that need to be done for the treatment plant. So
Which one is the one you're intending to replace this time?
not necessarily replace, but to be clean would be Tracker Pond well.
Tractor pump. Anybody else have any questions about the well pump?
And we try to do those, what, every couple of years or how often?
We try and keep one going every year, every other year. We do have 5 wells, and it depends, we have, company comes out, we do flow test and see what the flow is, what the demand on the well is, what it's rated for, and what the pump curve is. So we see that decline on the pump curve. We try to stay ahead of the game before we get, into a situation where it's very costly to do a repair. Instead of just doing a cleaning, you can get into a situation you have to do more replacement.
And as a town, well, there isn't a unified water grid. It's like that, the Tracker Pond handles one side of town, the other handle the other side of town, right?
Correct. Tracker Pond wells in the high zone.
So you couldn't just flow water through that, whatever the side of town that's serviced by Tracker Pond would be affected.
Not necessarily. It was no different than having the Elm Street tank offline. It was running that on pressure instead of volume. So it's a more of a complex way to run the system. You don't have a stockpile of water to maintain, constant steady flow. So you have more fluctuation in pressure. So when that well's offline, we'd have the tank online, but it'd be supplemented by taking, high pressure pumps and pumping the water from the low zone into the high zone to maintain that volume, redundancy.
And when the Elm Street tank was being painted, I know there's still some work going on there. But it's within view of my house. I've been watching it for months and months and months. Do they drain it out and paint the inside too?
Yes.
Yeah.
That tank was completely drained, sandblasted down to bare metal.
Used to hear the generators.
Yeah, yeah. And, they made quick work with the interior of the tank. The exterior was a little bit tougher. They had to work with the weather and, they could only work when it was real windy, they couldn't work. So, but our end of the project is 100% done. What they're doing now is relocating all the cell tower equipment from the temporary pole back onto the tank, and the temporary pole will be removed.
Yeah.
They expect that. Yeah, they expect that work to take about a month and a half. So
What was the total cost of the town on that? Painting, remember? I know every year we're talking about something like 300,000 being set aside towards tank painting.
yeah, so we have a contract with Underwater Solutions. It's a company. They're our asset management company,
Okay.
and they handle all that with the painting and everything else, and it varies tank to tank depending on the size and the complexity of doing the work, you know. With Elm Street tank, it's a 100-foot tank, and you know, really taking put bracketry on the roof field to put staging and stuff on for the men to work off. It was there was no brackets up there, so those brackets were manufactured and installed, and they permanently stay up there. So in the future, it streamlines that project.
The modular, whatever else they want to put on or take off.
Yes, yeah, and then the way that we had them put the cell tower stuff on, you see kind of see those ladders that look like they're wrapped around the tank, so there's a standoff, so in the future, any maintenance needs to be done, that equipment will not need to be removed. And they can, you know, sort of speed up the whole process a lot too.
Yeah. And what's the next tank you think's to be done? Is it gonna be the one by the mall, the school, or?
Be the special lane tank by the mall, the high school was done 2 years prior to, the Elm Street tank. So the next tank would be, the special lane tank.
How's the water quality in town? I mean, you say that Kingston has the best water in the state.
We rank very high in the water standards as far as we're fortunate, knock on wood, with no PFAS. You know, water that's seen light of day that comes out of your faucet. The chlorine is only introduced at a very minimal level to be able to create what they call a flock to remove the manganese in the water, which caused the discoloration in the water. So after the Trackle Pond treatment plant was established, went online, you know, it was a great increase in the quality of the water in the high zone. You know, the pumping just goes on to meet the demand. It's the wells are drawing a lot more, a lot faster. So that's what pulling the manganese in. So with the addition of the manganese treatment facility up by the mall, that would be 2 wells. You know,
And Track Pond already does that.
correct.
I had a chance to walk through there. It's a fascinating place.
It is. You know, it's if you walk in at first, it's kind of overwhelming, but it's the same thing 4 times over.
We went through one year with Matt Darsh, and he was like, "Yep, this whole thing, it's got an app on my phone. I can watch it when I'm gonna come in and tell me whatever it was he does with it, you know."
Yep.
But just to see the work going on and everything, that they had engineers bringing another tank, and you can see where people had been, you know, they set their gloves down or whatever for the water department work they had done, and then it just runs when they're not there.
Yeah.
But then when you gotta go there, you're gonna go there. So.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's pretty wild. You walk in the wilderness, you know, and you say, well, what's when does it work? It's working right now. It's
So
fine.
before that existed and before the one grassy hole came on board, where was the water being treated? Was it the buildings on South Street?
Nope.
That's just looks like utility sheds.
So at Trackle Pond in the wellhead, that building that was lime corrosion control facility right there. So
Okay.
we added hydrated lime in a slurry form for pH control, corrosion control. So we've done away with the lime because now that's done with different chemicals in the new treatment plant.
Any other questions about the tank theme? Okay, well, if Chris speaks up, we'll bring him back on. Elm Street building repairs. So
So,
the old water department. I
correct.
should say it's the old building. It's still currently headquartered, right?
Yes, it is. Yep. Yeah, so that roof on that building is 35 to 40 years old, and the asphalt shingles and the rubber roofing is just deteriorated to the point now where we're getting water penetration inside of the building. So we've done some repairs exterior to mitigate water penetration. Well, we're trying to get bids, prices on it. We really get 2 contractors that came out. Other contractors go to look at it and they say it's too complex. They don't want to get involved. So because it overhangs the river, so there's a bit of a challenge there on that side. But we need to do something that we don't want to have damage inside the building that creates rot and damage to sheetrock and everything else.
Yeah, no, it's a landmark too, so you guys would say we're gonna put a facility, I'm sure the town will still want for something. Sell it to somebody who's gonna keep it as is. Has anyone looked at the underside of that building? I tend to be kind of nosy about buildings, and a couple of times I've been around there. Did one of these, like, oh, it's all the wood's exposed. All the timber framing underneath it, and it looks like it's aged, but I don't know if that means that there's anything wrong with it. It's just.
No, so there was some structural concerns that was identified probably about 10 years ago, and there was significant work that was done. They had come in and taken a whole bunch of stuff out, put in concrete piers in the river. They dammed things up, diverted water, put in concrete piers and big pressure treated laminated beams and supports, and re-supported the whole building right down into the, basically the bedrock of the building. Then when they took the dam out, they did more structural repairs on the riverside.
Mhm.
I don't know if you notice, there's, greater concrete walls there, and they
I saw like
rebuilt.
a concrete, you saw a seawall, it's rivers, a retaining wall, that's right up towards the foundation of the building.
Yeah, so when they took the dam out, that kind of had a big negative impact on that side of the structural foundation of the building. They did take and dig around, excavate in there and put in new footings and foundation walls, and I think some of the walls got rebuilt right up to the sills and stuff
Mhm.
due to deterioration over the time. So the underside of it is very sound.
Okay.
You said you had two quotes. Is that where you're getting this 40 grand figure from, or did they come in higher or?
No, they were, I think one was 38,000 and another one I think was like 36,000.
And you're gonna do the shingles too on the side of the building, the wooden? you're gonna
No.
replace them?
No, there's a couple of cheek walls up there. The way the building had been added on to over the years and changed is combination of 3-tab asphalt shingles on the roof now and flat rubber roof. And a couple of cheek walls, where the way that rubber runs up those cheek walls will need to be stripped up. There's small areas that will be replaced. The cedar shingles on the sidewall for the most part are in
Good shape.
good shape.
I go by that building every day.
But-
Like that building.
Yeah, no, it's a stop by and come inside. It's a fantastic building inside.
Mhm.
People walk in like, this is a wonderful
I
building,
hear it,
you know,
who've been in there for water meetings, whatever, it's beautiful.
yeah.
I mean, I've seen one driving by when the lights are on.
Stop in anytime, stop in anytime.
Kind of like the Adams Center.
Mhm.
One
Right.
of those old buildings. Someday we're gonna not know what to do with it, because eventually these guys are gonna move into a plant or something like that. Not that they want to, but we'll just be holding on to it.
Well, you can't sell that building, right?
Sure.
The Adams building, can't sell that.
No,
Oh, yeah, I don't know what
Yeah.
these,
yeah, it's all deed restricted.
yeah. Okay.
And the intention with the roof repairs would be to maintain something that's aesthetically fits in with the building, nothing that's, probably go with a architectural shingle as opposed to a 3-tab shingle, just for longevity of the lifespan of it.
Okay, you have, I didn't realize this from my project notes, but I also see that there's a 1-ton pickup
No, we removed that from that. That's been removed.
and testing permitting interim construction for new well site.
Next year.
Yeah,
That's
that's,
next year? Oh, yeah,
Yes.
you're right.
yeah, I think the truck got pushed out next year or after that.
And the well site, you're looking for an interim, is that for the one, for the land you're trying to acquire up by Track Pond?
Yes, I believe that's what that's for, yes.
So it would be permanent.
Yeah, that would be for the development of that.
I
engineering
just saw
development.
interim, I thought you guys were gonna put something in temporarily.
No.
Okay.
No.
Any other questions for the water superintendent? How about you, Mr. Breelman? You've been quiet tonight.
No questions here.
All right,
Perfect.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you for your
Thanks coming
time.
out.
Great to see you guys. Nice
Good
talking to you.
education on what you guys are doing and your capital needs and everything else.
All right, trying to keep things flowing in town.
Thank you.
All right.
Important.
Thank you. Have a good night.
So he's the guy who keeps everything flowing towards our houses. The guy who keeps them flowing
Away.
away. He's gonna have to
That's important
reschedule.
too.
Bye-bye. All right, so let's just move along. If we can. I have updated the analysis. I've already sent Chris, this for the Reed tennis courts. I sent to Chris Breelman this, but I didn't want to send it to a forum over email in case anyone was saying, Keith, you want this? I'll go. In case anyone would suggest, I was suggesting an opinion outside of a public meeting, but so basically what I did is I received from the recreation director information that she had told us she was going to provide the scheduled hours that the rec department plans for the Grace Beach tennis courts, and it gets 828 hours pickleball play or through, so that's late April through late October. She also found out that there's 204 summer hours of scheduled pickleball play at the Reed tennis courts. So what I did is I just took the numbers we had before, added an amended section, created some scenarios under which you could look at that, if you want to value it from a financial cost perspective, or, I mean, CPC wanted to value it in terms of value to the committee, whatever they want, I mean, to the community, whatever they wanted to do. So basically I took those hours, for the, read, divided by the number of months they're scheduling them, applied those to the months where if it was expanded out to the same way, actually, that was a scenario two. So the same way they're doing the, Gray's Beach. So if you had the same numbers of hours being used, say in May or September, and then trailed down or tapered off a bit towards the cooler months, which it probably does, you get a number of hours. So I looked at what the actual hours are. You'll see, sorry if I explain this, I finished this before I came here very well. So it took the actual hours and then assumed what if 50 people walked up, or 50 hours of use from sort of walk up use, 100 hours, 200 hours, then expanded it. What if it was being planned for the same time frame that Gray's Beach was planned, and then you have those random people. And if you look at what you'd spend per hour if it lasts a year versus the 10 years that somebody suggested on CPC, it might last, and then the 25, which is probably around the time where we're at right now, 25 or 30. I looked at what the rehab would cost us, in that sort of annualized per use fashion, if it had the same numbers as Gray's. And then if we extended the read schedule time frame, if for whatever reason Gray's hours, the Gray's use was shifted to it, or if it just grew to that same sort of amount because of promotions and popularity, or getting the word out there. And then what happens additionally if 50, 100, 200, or even 300 people walk up unscheduled use. So basically, at 25 years of going from the highest cost end of $28.67 per hour based on the cost of the rehabilitation, not including all the other maintenance. As you see, as a more detailed explanation I'm giving here, all the way down to just under potentially $4. So I think that's a bit of a stretch that you'd actually have that much use on with all the other courts in town. But anyway, that just, I think, kind of shows where it's that the original analysis without the program hours is a lot higher than what it would be to factor in the program hours, which they have some data to support. So I want to make sure that was all clear and presented objectively to everyone. Any other questions about that? You're welcome to check my math and call or text or email me and tell me I screwed it up, and I'll fix it and send it back out. All right. There's no other discussion. I'll move on to future meetings. Our next scheduled meeting is on March 14th. We'll be voting our CIP and any of the advisory votes. However, I was thinking that we probably needed to have a meeting beforehand, as we discussed before, to get through all the minutes that are piling up. I'd like those to be, just as a goal to have that done before we actually vote on all the stuff we've learned during these meetings. And we may have to discuss more about the wells and now the trucks. I'm going to make a note here about potential agenda item for trucks. And if there's any other discussion about how the tennis courts plays in with the wells, and I don't know that CPC is going to ask us which one we would suggest if they had to pick one or the other, but we might want to at least discuss it. So I've come up with a list of days. I've asked someone in Keith's staff who books the rooms for us to, I gave it a list of dates and said, where are there rooms available, 101 or 203 on those dates? I went through and looked where they were both booked and determined, it wasn't worth asking for, but I've got the rest of them here. I threw in some FinCom meetings so that if Mike said 2 nights in a row is too much, we could avoid the, so we have one on the 6th, one on the 7th here as options. Wayne, you thought I had written here.
Yeah, we had to Zoom the 11th and 13th, one.
I had your. Sorry. One sec. Well, you had emailed your availability.
Yeah.
If we want to do Monday, March 4th, and I'm not suggesting we have to, but that one I'd have to post by tomorrow, so we have to make a firm decision on that tonight in order for there to be 48 hours worth of, business days between now and then. Anything that anybody likes or doesn't like on the list of options?
I'd like to avoid the 2 Mondays if we could, but it's not a hard and fast need.
Okay. I don't like Mondays either.
I do not particularly object to being here a second night for FinCom.
We got the stamina, we'll do it. Feel like this guy over here's got to go to Board of Selectmen, then he's got FinCom, then he's got us, and then it's Board of Selectmen, FinCom, and us.
Yeah, but they pay him twice as much.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Twice as much, just what, us? Be pretty good pension for us if it was, I'm retired now. All right, so we're looking at then at
The 7th and 14th.
14th, we already have booked, but
Right.
it's the voting, so I know that we could fit some of this in there if we had to. I don't know how long the discussions and, we'll have a lot of motions to make and there could be department heads coming here to make the final case for their projects if needed. And I didn't want to presume that that we'd get through it all in that one night. And then I was thinking that whatever we did that night, we should get the minutes ready for that. Plus discuss that we have to, well, at least someone from the committee, usually the chair goes before the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee and the annual town meeting to present. So we want to do some planning there and figure out how we want to go about that. I think we're going to have to come up with an explanation for these trucks depending on what happens with them.
I guess if we're looking 7th versus 13th, I'd pick the 7th. But
Okay,
again,
Thursday, yep.
not a hard and fast need.
The three of us can do that. Chris, are you good with March 7th?
That sounds as good as any to me.
Okay, I will think through all the agenda items that might come up and try to get that out. Is there anything that anyone can think of that we would need to discuss or any of these projects that you'd want to bring back into the conversation other than the recreation stuff and the trucks?
Oh, I think that should be.
Okay.
good amount of-
I don't expect necessarily though that the analysis and whatever work that Paul and Keith are gonna do would be ready then, but we can do our own and continue to discuss and, progress forward. And if they have something else, this till the 14th, that is kind of last minute, but it could be done. Okay. I don't want to put too much of a.
I appreciate that.
Okay, because this is a tough pill to swallow. But I mean, if we understand, the real benefit, maybe it's less of a tough pill to swallow. We always have to get other people to take it the same way. Said someone think I might throw their chair.
You can
That's
think of
okay.
a couple people who might do that.
6 o'clock on the 7th.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're looking at right now. That'd be meeting room 101. We could certainly do a remote component. In terms of the meeting following our voting meeting on the 14th, we want to get together, finish up any business that we want done between voting and going on to annual town meeting. Like I said, there'll be at least one set of minutes. I'd like to get those accepted and sent to the clerk as soon as possible. I don't think this has to be in a meeting room. And with the kind of stuff we're talking about, it's kind of optional for ex officios if they want to be there. I mean, Keith might want to talk about, when we present this to the Board of Selectmen, because he'll be in that meeting. And he'll probably be in the FinCom meeting as well, but I don't know that he has to be there. So he can set us up with the meeting ready to go, and then if he wants to, he can take off. My philosophy is I'll keep the employees here longer than need to be. I should have a note here myself that the clerk's office is closed. So yeah, that meeting on the 7th, I'm gonna have to get that posted pretty quickly.
Clerk's office.
They have the elections. I thought it said on the meeting calendar.
The one school or no, across from the old town hall, is that where they're having early election?
I don't know, that's what they did
That's what the
before.
early elections is right now, but it's just through, I believe, it's just through Saturdays.
Anything else, guys? You wanna pick a day for following or the 14th, or we wanna just leave that till we get closer?
27th or 28th, either one works for me. I have no preference.
I'd rather do Wednesdays if we could, but again,
Let's go
All
to
right.
27th.
I'll try to get that posted before my counterpart on FinCom does. They keep trying to steal my Wednesdays. It used to be ours. All right, I think we're settled. Mr. Breelman, are you fine with that?
I'm as fine as I can be.
Okay, it looks like we lost the treasurer, but I don't know if he needs to be here for those meetings anyway. Back to my agenda here, I believe that brings us to member comments, questions, concerns. Anybody have any? If we missed anything. Annual town meetings on the 4th at KIS. I don't know the time, but I believe it's probably 9 o'clock. Forgot that from the last item.
if it makes you feel better, I have the meeting scheduled pulled up for FinCom. The 27th is not on our list for FinCom, so we should be good.
Okay,
And we are scheduled for the 3rd. It's not like it's open past that point.
okay. Then I will grab that one and see what we can do. All right, with that, everyone is if they're ready, I'm happy to take a motion in a second.
I'll move adjournment of the capital planning committee meeting for Wednesday, February 28th at 7:30 PM.
I'll second that.
Okay, yep, roll call vote. Heath, aye.
Michael, I.
Wayne, I.
Chris, I.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen.